Hello and welcome to the Seven Figure Agency Podcast, where we're interviewing highly successful digital marketing agency owners from across the country on how they've grown and scaled their agencies. Today, I am super excited. We have an amazing agency owner, thought leader with us, Kasim Aslam from formerly Solution 8, now Pareto Talent. If you don't know about Kasim, and I imagine you probably do, he's just a brilliant thinker. He's the author of You versus Google. He grew multiple agencies to 7 figures. His most recent sold for 8 figures. So if you're excited, what I want you to do is hit the like button here, hit the subscribe button if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, and let's get into it. Kasim, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Josh, thanks for having me. And everybody listening, thanks for coming and showing up. There's a lot on Netflix right now, so I'm hoping y'all made the right decision.
Yes, I have no doubt. So Kasim, I know that you're successful and you've got an amazing story of how you've grown, how you've scaled. Real quick, just tell us your backstory and kind of how you got to where you're at today. How did you get into the digital agency space?
I wanted to be an actor. I have that said pathetic personality that really enjoys attention, as you can tell. And I needed something I could do from set, because the joke when you're on a film set is hurry up and wait. And so I started a little a web design agency was kind of the seed. And turns out I'm not a great actor, Josh, but I ended up being a pretty good entrepreneur. And so the acting fell by the wayside and the business stuck.
Awesome. And so Solution 8 was your agency that you recently grew. Tell us about the scope. Like, how large was that agency? What did the teams look like? How many clients?
Yeah, when we sold the agents, we sold in October 2022. We had 80 employees, 200 clients, $100 million in ad spend under management. We were just under $6 million in gross revenue. And we sold to a SoftBank-backed MarTech company with a $1.4 billion valuation, which was an interesting experience, to say the absolute least.
No doubt. So guys, if you're excited to hear lessons learned and growing to that scale and kind of selling an agency, just type exit in the comments. We'll make sure we get into it. I've been collecting questions from you guys to make sure we incorporate them into today's interview. So I think a great place is going to be thinking about the agency space. Let's talk a little bit about how you packaged your program and kind of what you were selling at Solution 8 in like kind of the, as you call it, the main agency.
Yeah, so Solutions 8 started out as a full funnel agency, meaning we did everything, and we were everything to everybody, and if you paid me money, I would do it. It's why we were called Solutions 8, actually. That's the hypocrisy of the brand name, is we had 8 core services. And so we were doing like video production and web design and app creation and software development and marketing and PPC and SEO and blah, 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 blah. And I started to niche down, and as I started to niche down, I started to make more money. And what the irony, I built the #1 ranked Google Ads agency in the world. I built what my M&A advisor thinks was the largest Google Ads agency at the time we sold. And I've never run a Google Ads campaign myself end-to-end in my life. I couldn't if I wanted to. And I actually think, Josh, that's what was successful about Solutions 8 is, for as long as I was trying to be the practitioner, for as long as I was the baker in the bakery, business was hard. And as soon as I decided, dude, for the first 3 years that we were Google Ads centric and dedicated, we weren't running Google Ads in-house. I was outsourcing it to another agency. But that gave me the freedom and flexibility to actually build a business, to build an engine, to work on the business instead of in the business. And then when we took it in-house, our margins exploded. When I sold, I had 40% margins in an industry that aims at 15%. So the lesson that I learned was entrepreneurship is not fulfillment. You're not supposed to be doing the work. And if you are, I think you're wearing the wrong hat. And a lot of folks, smaller agency owners that do it, I understand if you want to be an artisan, you want to have a lifestyle business, but that's not the podcast we're on, right? Like, this is 7-figure agency. And for those of us that want to grow, and hopefully I'm not being overly aggressive with my opinions here, but I think that growth requires you taking off the artisan hat, the technician hat, whatever, however we want to refer to it. Stop doing the work. 80% good done by somebody else is better than 100% good done by me. That's an Ed Milet quote that I just butchered all the daylights. But dude, it took me 15 years to learn that lesson. So niching down, super important. And then also not being the one responsible for fulfillment allows you to zoom out, and then you really get to play master commander with your business.
Love it. I think so many agency owners think they need to know how to do it all: the SEO, the pay-per-click, the social media, the website design. And you'll find the most successful agencies, the first thing you have to remove yourself from is the doing of the work, right? If you're going to truly grow and scale and have a big impact in your agency, you can't do it. And Kasim is an amazing example of that. One thing, it kind of, while I get that, the one question I have is, you've got all this amazing content, look up Solution 8 on YouTube, look at all the videos. He articulately explains how to do Google Ads, how to really track it correctly, how to generate great results. How do you get that level of insight and the ability to explain it without having your hands dirty in the campaigns?
To be honest with you, I think it makes me better at it. So I'm a bridge builder. And, let's say that you're a founder, business owner, entrepreneur, C-level exec, marketing director, whatever it is, and you have questions about Google Ads. The worst person for you to ask is a Google Ads expert, because they're going to make so many assumptions and they're going to jump straight to the end result. And they're going to have jargon and nomenclature and semantics, and you're going to be lost. I'm the dumbest guy in the room. So as the dumbest guy in the room, I would show up to my strategist every day and I'd be like, all right, what's working? What's not? Why isn't it working? Tell me what's happening. And what was interesting about it is they were forced to explain it to me like a toddler, because I effectively am a toddler with, speaking specifically as to the technical proficiency that they were executing on. And so when they explained it to me, I explained it to other people. And I never presented myself as like, I'm the best, I'm the smartest. Instead, I came to people and said, hey, look what I just figured out. And that made the education far more accessible, even to PPC experts. People that knew more than me enjoyed learning from me because I brought them back to fundamentals constantly, return to fundamentals constantly. My favorite statement in business is, I don't know. But you have to follow that up with, I'll find out. I like it with clients. You hop on a call with a client. Everybody's so worried. I was a young man. I was so worried about the imposter syndrome of somebody asking me a question and not knowing. And so it forced me into this weird box of, kind of egoic, almost lying, but just making stuff up along the, and I finally I gave up one day and I was like, you know what? I don't know, but I'll find out. And the relief from the client and the relief from me, and it builds up a level of trust. And it also puts you in a position to where you actually get to be on their side. If somebody's like, hey, what's happening with this campaign? Why is it dying? And you're like, you know what? That does look like it's dying. I have no idea, but I'm going to go find out. And then you can come back to them and explain and say, hey, actually that campaign's performing. That's a feeder campaign. The conversion values aren't supposed to be high on that because that's earning us an audience. The conversion values are supposed to be high here in the remarketing the brand campaign. And now I can explain it in a way that they'll understand. So agency owners, you don't need to know everything. As a matter of fact, if you feel that pressure, it means you haven't built the right team. I hope that's okay to say. Prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. And so I'm not going to tell everybody that hiring is a problem. But I will say that if you feel the pressure of having to know everything, having to answer all the questions, what I want to do in all of my businesses, I don't even want to be on the org chart anymore, Josh. I built 5-7-figure agencies, and I don't want to be anywhere on the org chart. I don't want the flow chart to say, ask Kasim this question. I always want to know, I don't know, but ask Leandra, ask Yvonne, ask Danish, I want to know who to go to. And I think that's the way to build businesses that really scale.
I love it. I think that's super empowering for you. If you're watching, you're like, man, I need to know how to do it all. You don't, right? And you really shouldn't. That's going to become a handicap for you if you're the one doing all the work, making all the decisions. You want to empower a team to help facilitate that. I want to talk a little bit about, any lessons learned. Over $100 million in ad spend. I know you didn't manually handle it yourself. You had an amazing team, but any lessons learned on scaling, to that level and making sure that you're generating quantifiable return for the clients?
Yeah, it's interesting. There are these inflection points, especially in agency. I'm sure it's every business, but in the agency business, there are these, they're like epochs almost. They're evolutions. You can get to $300,000 gross revenue, $300,000 to $500,000 gross revenue with a certain model. But that model won't get you to $1 million. And you can get to $1 million with this new evolved model, but that model won't get you to 1 to 3. And you can get to 1 to 3 with your new evolved model, but that model won't get you 3 to 6 or 3 to 7, 3 to 8. And I sold right before we, got to 10 million in gross rev. I bring that up because it's frustrating. The business you build, the mechanism you build, the vehicle you build has to evolve, and you're rebuilding the plane as you're flying it. I'll give you a really specific example. When we were a smaller ads agency, I hired a team of client managers to intercept communication between the specialist and the client. So you have a client, you have and a person doing the Google Ads work, and the specialists are they're like engineers. They're deep, dark, cave-dwelling, nocturnal, over-caffeinated, don't want to talk to humans. Yeah, the answer to everything is no, leave me alone. So why would I put them on the phone with my client? So I thought I was Mr. Smart Guy. I hired a whole team of client managers who didn't know Google Ads very well. They could answer the first 2 layers of questions, but they were conscientious and they were friendly, and they were more salespeople than anything. They're like reselling the fact that you're working with us. And that worked amazingly well until we got nerd famous. As soon as we got an influx in higher quality leads, spending more money, more strategic, more intelligent, more sophisticated, those people hated talking to my client managers because they knew Google Ads. They're like, why am I talking to this bozo who doesn't know more than I know? I want to talk to the person doing the work. So my model had to evolve, and I had to start hiring, building, and training strategists, which is basically a specialist who can act like a client manager. And it was so interesting to me because I built this scaled agency. We were already in the 7 figures, I already had great margins, and yet I couldn't grow with the model I had. We had to form a new model. And if you're prepared for that, and if you realize that that's par for the course, it puts you in a position of being massively ahead of the curve, because for a while there, we were beating our heads against the wall, trying to figure out how to make our new visibility and our new leads fit with our old model. And it was an ineffective model. So be ready to pivot. Don't get romantic about how you do fulfillment. Blockbuster should have figured out Netflix, right? Like they should have been the very first one saying, okay, my goal isn't to have people come to a store and roam the shelves and pick up this little plastic box and rent it from me. My goal is to get people media. And if that's my goal, they should have been the first one shipping things through the mail. And dude, look at what Netflix did, because Netflix wasn't streaming. Remember that? I'm old enough to remember, Josh. Netflix used to send DVDs through the mail, and they're the ones that realized, like, okay, we need to pivot. So continue with that frame of mind. What's the end result? Nobody buys a drill, they buy a hole. So what is the end result that you're delivering on, and how do you get your customers that most effectively and most efficiently? And is your model currently aligned with that mode and modality? And if it's not, be ready to move, be ready to pivot.
So good. I think it's a great lesson around, we're all trying to figure out our account management model, how we serve the client, how we retain the client, how we make sure the clients win. And it's just a really interesting insight that as you started to attract the higher level client that was more tech savvy, just the facade of an account manager that could take a message and hand it to the expert became an issue. And you kind of had to iterate and innovate around that.
Yeah, wasn't enough. And I imagine if we, as we grew, had I not sold, I bet you the modified model wasn't going to be enough. And I needed to come and build a whole team around the strategist. We were looking at that modification. The exit was unsolicited. And so, that was something of a surprise to me. But I think I lucked out, to be honest with you, because I sold at the exact right time.
Beautiful. Yeah. So going back to the service, so Solution 8, you had like all these 8 solutions. Here at 7 Figure Agency, we tend to talk and preach heavily niche. And some of you might be listening like, well, he had a generalist PPC agency. But if you really drill down on Kasim's story, he created micro niche agencies in there that were also hyper profitable. We'd love to hear kind of the evolution of the service offering within Solution 8 and what you did within real estate and what you did within Montessori schools and some of the other sub niches.
Yeah, I call Solutions 8 my metal detector. And we niched down in Solutions 8 too. We had a strong emphasis and focus on e-commerce and SaaS, and then some professional services. But even then, we would take just about anybody with a budget. And I liked that because it kept us sharp. However, to the point that you're making, the efficiency was in the niches. So I had the highest performing real estate investment campaign on the planet for 7 years. We spun that off into its own business. That was actually my first exit. I built a Montessori school agency, more because I'm obsessed with Montessori than anything else. But that agency now nets us close to $400,000 a year, net, with 15 minutes a week from me in intervention. Like, it's true mailbox money. But it's because we niche down, and then we have the opportunity to serve the niche. I give Montessori schools more than any other marketing agency could afford to, times 100, Josh. It's insane how well we're able to love on these people and still be very profitable, which is something I'm really proud of. I have a counterintuitive opinion on niching, and I'll try to sell it to you here, and maybe you can help me articulate it. I don't think people should niche down right away. I call it the hourglass. So the hourglass in niching says start broad so you can see the opportunities, but then as you see the opportunities, narrow. So what I did is I started, there's 2 levels of analysis from a niche perspective. You can niche down your service lines, or you can niche down your industry focus. There's actually a Z-axis too, which is geography, but we don't have to talk about that right now. So I started with broad service lines. I had 8 service lines, and I started to niche, but I kept my industry focus broad, and I would narrow that down in my sub agencies. I think people need to start broad so they can figure out what works for them, what they like, what they're passionate about, what they're good at, what's scale. I hate the word scalable, but what's scalable. And then as they niche down, they get real profitable. Now, the reason it's shaped like an hourglass is you have the opportunity to broaden back out, which is really fun. And that's where a massive amount of profitability exists. So the Montessori example is a really good one. I niched all my services down to Google Ads. I niched the agency down to Montessori. So now I just do Google Ads for Montessori schools. But when we did that, I noticed the Montessori schools needed website, needed CRM, needed content, needed SEO, needed, listing management, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I got to broaden back out, and it was this fun little hourglass that gave me the opportunity to niche down, get hyper profitable, and then broaden my service offering as it would relate to my customer, and they told me what they needed to buy.
100%. And I think that a mistake agencies make sometimes is they try to niche too early.
Right.
A great example of that was our first niche we thought was going to be restaurants. Me and my business partner, Dean, 15 years ago now. And we were knocking on doors on restaurants, and we were making these calls, and no traction at all. But I had a former client that was a plumber. I went out and saw him. He signed up right away. He referred me to another plumber, and we just had a direct path once we entered, like, as you say, the corridor, and T. Harv Eker says, enter the corridor. And that path just took off for us. And so if I had closed my mind just to say, I chose real estate, I'm going to stay in real estate, I would have never had the momentum and the growth that we had in our agency over time. So I agree, you go wide, then you go narrow, and then you can kind of figure out how do we do more? Like, how do we make sure we're serving these clients and solving problems that are going to help them grow and take their businesses to the next level?
100%. Dude, I've had a ton of failed niches. I tried to go after dental implants. We had a client that was spending $2,000 a month and making $200,000 in gross rev. And I was like, well, I want to clone this. And so we tried to make that a niche, and we could not get in front of these dentists. It was so hard because there's so many other agencies that just had that code cracked. So even though I had a better product by 1,000x, I couldn't, without literally kicking down doors, I couldn't get to them. I tried to niche down into stonemasons. Same story. They're spending a couple of grand a month, and they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue because nobody else wanted to be in the space. But all these stonemasonry businesses were hyper inefficient. So they're really bad clients. So, don't be afraid to kiss frogs either. Most of the successful agency owners I know, like it's 3 or 4 or 5 attempts before you're like, oh, wait, this is actually really working for me.
Yeah. Love that. I think it's great encouragement if you happen to be in that phase where it's like you've got the hypothetical niche, you're going down that track, you're not getting the traction. Keep yourself open, look for other opportunities. A lot of times the niche finds you, and once you get 2, 3, 5, 10 clients and you've got a proven concept, then you can double down on the positioning and really accelerate things to the next level. So I do want to shift gears. We talked about kind of the program packaging. I would love to hear, what were the best strategies that you leveraged to land clients? Obviously growing to the size that you did, like what were the plays that worked best for you in your agency?
YouTube was, we spent $150,000 in YouTube ads before we were sold. After we sold, that ratcheted up to $250,000 a month. Spending $150,000 a month in YouTube ads. Here's the best part. I wasn't tracking conversions, which is insane to think about from a Google Ads perspective, a media buy perspective, a best practices perspective. But what we figured out was if we provided amazing epic value on a long enough timeline, people came to us. But what you have to do is you have to get rid of the click to conversion gremlin that lives in your head. People, especially agency owners, think, oh, somebody clicked, why didn't they buy? Somebody clicked, why didn't they buy? And they're thinking in 30-day epochs, which is insane to me. It's insane. That, like their consumers aren't compliant, and they don't buy in 30-day windows, especially in, an agency purchase is a very sophisticated purchase. So we were expecting 6, 9, 12, 18 months before somebody was exposed to our content, engaged with our content, and then ultimately bought. It's a long game. Earning trust is a long game. Trust, integrity, authenticity, vulnerability. Like there were some times where we made mistakes. I can't tell you, you can see this on my YouTube channel. I would come out on YouTube and say, hey, I know we told everybody to do this. We were wrong. Sorry. We thought that was the case, but it turns out that algorithmically this adjustment, and what was interesting about it, Josh, is it just boosted our subscribership and our viewership. And everybody's like, thank God there's somebody who's willing to say it, because so many agency owners continue to try to posture, and they don't want to look stupid or look bad. And that's one thing that's really helpful about not being an expert is, hey, this is what I thought. And we just figured out that that's actually not the case. I think YouTube is still undiscovered. The average time on site across the internet is 60 to 90 seconds. The average time on site on YouTube is 20 minutes. It's insane how ravenous people are for YouTube content. And once you've niched down, you can own any industry. I started Google Ads late. There were a bunch of established players. Isaac Radansky was already Isaac Radansky. You know what I mean? Like there were a bunch of very established players. And all I did is I just created a YouTube video a day. Shout out to my buddy Uzair Karawala, actually, who also has a YouTube channel, SF Digital. He was the one doing it first. He had 15 some odd thousand subscribers. And I was like, dude, how are you doing this? And he goes, I shoot a video every day. And he shot a video every day. And I was like, I'm going to follow suit. And my entire exit was based off of, we did an 8-figure exit And the vast majority of all my clients that weren't coming from referrals were coming from YouTube with a 30,000 subscriber base. Like that, adjusted for margin of error, that's zero in the world of YouTube.
Right.
But we were niched down and everybody knew that we were the best. So providing valuable content was the best thing I ever did for my agency. Not looking, this is so crazy to say, dude, but not looking for attribution. Because when you chase attribution, you're chasing the extreme bottom of the funnel and you're chasing the most inefficient spend. If it can be attributed, it's actually an inefficient spend. You're at a vending machine for traffic, and vending machines are expensive ways to buy anything. You know, you want to go to Costco and bulk buy. Well, the way to do that is large scale value. So all of our ads were very broad, and we were running ads to hour-long videos. Our highest performing ad was a 60-minute video by John Moran called CMO Math.
Wow.
Who runs traffic to an hour-long video, dude? You know what I mean? Like, it's such a stupid thing to do. And yet, like, some of my biggest clients, names I can't even say, but like Fortune 1000 clients came from videos like that, because you'd have their director of marketing and whoever watched it be like, oh, that's exactly the problem we're having. Just go hire those guys. Absolute no-brainer. So I would tell agency owners, create content and be specific. No more of this, you know, oh, here's the first 3 steps. And if you sign up, I'll give you, just give it away.
Give it away.
Give first, give last, give more. Give first, give last, give more. Give. And it's going to feel like you're giving away the farm, because you are. You want to give so much that people can do it themselves. You want to give so much. And guess what? Most people, 80% of people will, because they can't afford you. But the 20% of people who can't afford you are like, oh God, thank God somebody knows what they're doing. Let me just give it to those folks. Yeah.
So good. So obviously when we think about YouTube, there's the organic side of the equation and there's paid side. Obviously you had a big paid component to it. How did you think about the organic, you know, versus the paid component of your videos on YouTube?
Yeah. Well, we started with organic. I learned this from Evan Carmichael. I had it was great. Evan saved my life in so many ways. Uzair got me started on YouTube, and Uzair is the one who says you have to shoot a video every day. That's what the algorithm wants. So we started doing that, and I met Evan through Joe Polish. It was really embarrassing, man. I'm sitting there at this table with Joe, who's like one of my heroes, right? So I'm already starstruck, and I can't even believe I'm in the room. And Joe asked me for some ideas for a problem he was trying to solve, and I was telling him about YouTube. And he goes, hey, can my friend sit in on this meeting? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So there's this guy who I don't know, I've never seen, and he's sitting across the table from me, and I am just sprecking the bushy babble, dude. I'm talking all this shit, like I actually know what I'm saying. And I have, at this point, probably 15,000 subscribers, maybe. And I'm telling Joe about YouTube and how he needs to YouTube and how YouTube's whatever. And then Joe looks over at Evan, and he's like, how does all that sound? And Evan goes, it's mostly right. And in my mind, I'm like, who's this fool that, you know, is going to talk to? I have 15,000 subscribers. Turns out it's Evan Carmichael, 4 million subscribers, one of the smartest YouTubers in the whole wide world. And then he sat me at the kiddie table, and he taught me the 5 most important things with YouTube. And this was so critical to my success. You have to shoot a video every day, and you have to do it for 180 days if you want to get recommended, because YouTube wants to know you're going to be consistent. That's every business day, by the way. Your videos have to be 10 minutes or longer, because YouTube wants long form content. You have to have a 70% retention at the 60-second mark, which means 70% of the people that start to watch your video have to continue to watch your video past 60 seconds, because YouTube wants to know that you're actually delivering on the value you're offering. This means no clickbait titles. Actually say what it is that you're doing. So you want quality, not quantity. You don't want a ton of views. You want a ton of views that will stay, which changes your entire paradigm. The most important thing about a video, of course, is the thumbnail and the title. Mr. Beast talks about how he won't shoot a video until he knows what the thumbnail or title looks like. And then the call to action isn't to go off the site. It's to watch this next YouTube video, because YouTube wants retention. They want people to stay inside of YouTube. And so refer them to other videos, yours or other people's. Those 5 things changed the game for us on YouTube. As soon as we did that, it was pop, 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 pop. And we took off like a rocket. Beautiful.
So that's the organic side of the equation. Solution 8 would be the place if people want to just kind of benchmark what kind of videos he made, how he created them. When you say daily, did you batch them in advance, or were you just very consistent every day? You'd carve out an hour or so.
Yeah, I started every single day. When I started, I was shooting a video every single day, because, you know, it would take me an hour worth of research to shoot a 10-minute video. Because I would have to talk to a strategist. You know what I did a lot is I listened to my client manager's calls. I listened to strategist calls. I listened to trainings calls. We had every week at Solutions 8, we had these, we called them the risks. So there were orange, there was yellow, orange, and red. And that was the order of the risks, order of priority. And that's when people would bring a project to the table and say, I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to solve this. And then the brain trust would tackle it. And so I'd listen to those calls, and I would pick out little things like, oh, that's cool. That's interesting. That's helpful. Again, that's why it was so good that I didn't know the breadth of what they were talking about, because most of what they thought was normal, I thought was really valuable information. But it would take me time to amalgamate that. And so I started doing one video a day, and that would take me about an hour to shoot a 10-minute video between the research and actually shooting it. And then as I got better and more adept at it, I would batch them. And so I usually reserve Monday. And if you gave me 2 hours worth of time, I could produce 5 10-minute videos.
Okay.
And I haven't shot a video for the Solutions 8 YouTube channel in 2 years. So if you were to look at what we were
Let's
doing,
go back a little bit.
Go back. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Very cool. And no call to action. Your focus,
Dude.
Add value, go check out this video for more information. That way you're keeping them in YouTube. And then obviously if it's meeting the algorithmic targets, that means it's getting actually shared by YouTube and picking up organic traffic. When you put some paid ads behind it, it's going to play well in that ecosystem as well.
Yeah, the paid ads, Google's going to deny this, but the paid ads increased organic reach. Obviously, Google has, it's so funny because they say that's not true, but then they come out and say that we're solution agnostic from a traffic acquisition perspective, and all we're measuring is engagement. So if your engagement's high, we're going to give you more traffic. Well, if that high engagement came from paid traffic and that's juicing the algorithm, then it would make sense that your paid ads feed your organic. But I would caution anybody against thinking they can buy their way into well-optimized YouTube world right away. I'd have acacia content. I'd have a 90-day acacia content first, because the other thing you don't want to do, you don't want people to outrun you. There were people that watched every video. And then when we sold and stopped producing videos, there were people that got very angry about the fact that there weren't more videos coming, so make sure you have acacia content, make sure there's a repository, make sure you deliver on your promises. Running our YouTube lives, that was really, really helpful too, because it gave us a sense as to what people wanted to know, what problems they were running into. And dude, we ended up with subscribers that were like became friends. You know what I mean? There were people, I remember every now and then you get like a mean comment, which is what it is. That's YouTube. And there were people that would jump on the mean comments and just rip them apart. And I felt like I was like surrounded, I'm like this little nerdy kid surrounded by a bunch of like, my bodyguards or whatever that were beating up on the bullies, because when you provide value in that way, people really care about you, and they'll show that in awesome ways too. I would get tagged all the time and things, referred. All my speaking gigs came from that. So it just felt like rising tides. That was a really cool experience. I'm still grateful for that. I'm still grateful for all of our YouTube subscribers.
So good. Lots of great insights there on how you landed clients, kind of YouTube being the main channel. And like the counterintuitive lesson for you was, if you were just to run the ads and expect to spend $1 and see someone's schedule and see that turn into a retainer client, you'd throw out the channel completely and be like, this is a waste of time. But if you look at it on a long-term horizon, that was the catalyst for all of the growth, or most of the growth in the agency.
Yeah, thinking at least quarterly epochs. Monthly epochs are an absolute waste. Think in quarters, and preferably longer than that. It takes 6, 9, 12, 18 months for people to make strong decisions in that way. So strategize with that in mind.
So good. So good. I want to get into a topic I know you're passionate about, and that's how you build the team and how you're able to serve these massive clients, get the growth that you had while still retaining world-class results with your hands not engaged in the doing, right? Actually, like just having a team do the work. Talk us through kind of how you structured that and how you approach that.
Yeah, dude. So this is my favorite topic of all time, Josh. I hope you'll forgive me for soapboxing for a minute. But we need a paradigm shift as entrepreneurs. We are taught, every business book you'll ever read, every book behind me, every book I've ever read on entrepreneurship, business building, program, process, fulfillment, management, supervision, whatever, talks about and treats people like commodities. And if you look up the definition of commodity, which I've done because this is my favorite soapbox, a commodity is a good that is easily interchangeable, right? So if you buy a cucumber and I swap that with another cucumber, you're cool, because you're like, I had a cucumber, and now I have a cucumber, and a cucumber is a cucumber, right? And that's true for everything, in coal, gold and corn and oil and anything on the commodities market, easily interchangeable. One to the other doesn't matter. And that's how we're taught to deal with employees. The more or less the narrative is, build a system, put an easily interchangeable cog of a human being into that system, and then you make money. And the problem is people aren't commodities. The human person is a miracle. And I mean that literally. People are miracles, dude. Like what people are capable of is insane. And you can be an atheist. And I think actually an atheist would have to think a person is even more of a miracle than somebody who's theologically committed. Because like these ultra smart apes walking around the world, figuring shit out and solving problems, like that's unfreaking believable. Everything amazing that's ever happened, a human created, or something that a human created. You know what I mean? Like, it's unreal what people are capable of. And you have to have that frame of mind going in as an employer, because otherwise you end up with average and mediocre. And it can be the same human. The same human in my organization is going to function very, very, very different, because I think that way, than somebody who's like, you're a cog in a machine, sit down and do what I tell you to do. So first of all, reframe what it is. People are not commodities. And I mean, you do something really specific. You could have a graphic designer. Let's say we've all had, like, you know, an employee. Let's say that you have an employee who's a graphic designer, and they're a really good graphic designer, and then they quit or leave or get fired or whatever, and then you swap them out with a graphic designer. One graphic designer, that's not, those two things aren't pari passu, because maybe this one's really good at ideation, and this one's really good at presentation, and this one's really good at engaging with the customer. You know what I mean? Like, people are not commodities. Period and full stop. Point number one. Point number two, we have to understand the Pareto principle. The Pareto principle is the principle of outweighted returns. So 20% of the input is responsible for 80% of the output. And this is true for every organic ecosystem. 20% of the cows give us 80% of the milk. Weird, right? 20% of the criminals do 80% of the crimes. 20% of your employees are going to do 80% of your work, which is insane. And what most entrepreneurs do, what most businesses do, especially big businesses, is they look at that as a key man risk and they try to mitigate the risk. So they take a hierarchical structure and they flatten it. Well, when you flatten a hierarchy, you lose the most valuable part. So then they just have average employees doing average work, which is not what you want. When I sold Solutions 8, John Moran, one employee who became a business partner because he was so valuable, was managing 40% of our revenue. I had 80 employees. One guy was managing 40% of revenue because of the Pareto principle. And the Pareto principle is fractal. So if you have 1,000 employees, that means that 200 are doing 80% of the work. But zoom in. Of those 200, 40 of those are doing 80% of that work. Zoom in. Of those 40, 8 of those are doing 80% of that work. Zoom in, 1.6. So you end up realizing how true peak performers influence your organization in ways, dude, that, like, you don't get 10 or 20 or 30% more. You get 10x, 50x, 100x, 1,000x the output when you go after peak performers. And here's what I'm marshaling towards. If you're in the Western world, if you're in US, Canada, UK, etc., you and I can't compete for peak performers, because Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, they're swallowing them up, right? And they've got fancy ass conference rooms with $12 croissants, and it's super fan, you know, you got all these benefits and hundreds of thousands of dollars in comp. And even if I could match the salary, I'll never match the cashier, the ascension opportunities. But if you go to, pick your region, Latin America, Eastern Europe, North Africa, East Asia, doesn't matter. Go to the emerging world is what we're supposed to call it now. We're not allowed to say third world countries anymore. And you have, dude, the rest of the world produces just as many smart people as we produce on a per capita basis, right? Would have to, unless you're violently racist, you'd have to believe that. They have the same percentage of very intelligent, very hardworking people as we do. And yet they're probably more accessible to us. And so you can go to the emerging world, and if you're willing to pay more than other people are willing to pay, which is the key, by the way, because entrepreneurs want to hire people like they're commodities. They want to pay less and get more. I say, when you pay more, you get more. But paying 10 or 20 or 30% more than the high watermark, or 3 or 5x what they can make domestically, it doesn't get you 10 or 20 or 30% more work. It gets you 10 times, 50 times, 100 times the output. When I sold my business, I had 40% margins. You can't do that in paid advertising. It doesn't exist. And it's because I was charging domestic rates using international labor, and I was paying my people insane amounts of money. One of my favorite stories of all time was a young man. I won't use his name because I don't want to expose his personal story unless he wants it exposed. He was from India. The average Indian employee at the time was making $500 USD for this role. That's what Google was paying him. I was stealing Google's employees. $500 USD. It's probably $450 to $500 USD. I'm paying this kid $9,000 a month. He's managing my biggest client. He's managing my biggest client. Now, he worked his way up there, right? But I'm paying them that because he was the best in the world. He was the absolute best in the world. Nobody else would pay an Indian specialist $9,000 a month. He bought his parents the very first house that they ever owned. He got himself married, which is really important in India. And dude, I've got 79 other stories just like that. I found triple PhD talent, C-level talent. These are people that would be C-level executives. I think I might have just lied to you, dude. Maybe it was $4,500 a month. It was, that's what it was. It was 9 times the average. So it's $4,500 a month, not $9,000 a month. Forgive me. I want to make sure I'm being really, really careful with my words. It was 9 times what that role would have been paid at Google. And for him, it was unheard of. These are folks that would have been C-level execs at Fortune 100s, but they lost the geographic lottery. But they're accessible to us now. You can hire them right now today. Like, you can go and you can get these people. And like I said, they're literal miracles. So what I would ask entrepreneurs is broaden your horizons. Stop outsourcing the grunt work. Because everybody who outsources is like, yeah, I tried that and I've had a poor experience. Well, of course you have. You're outsourcing data entry. How good would you be if somebody sat you in front of a computer and was like, do this for 8 hours? You know what I mean? There's not a person on the planet that could do that long-term effectively. Outsource things that are fulfilling. Treat them like real human beings. Make them a part of the team. Pay them well. Take the concern of money off the table. Work to learn some of the cultural idiosyncrasies, the language barriers. Like, find a way to hurdle a few of those things, and you will find yourself faced with folks. My favorite part of my business is I get pulled, I don't push. I feel like I'm in a chariot that other people are pulling. And I remember the first half of my entrepreneurial life, I felt like I was just pushing this boulder up a hill by myself. And when I started finding peak performers, they outran me all the time, consistently, over and over and over again. So that's the reframe that I want from everybody. Dude, we could change the world. I really mean that. I don't want to get dramatic here. But if you take the average Argentinian right now, the average white collar Argentinian is making $200 to $300 USD a month. Imagine paying an Argentinian, I don't know what, $900 a month, 3 times what their peers make. They get to work from home. They work on a flexible schedule. They work for somebody who's giving them meaningful work. They're making 3 times what their peers are making. So now just the lifestyle impact that has on them, their kids, their community abroad, their spending power. And then you have a human who's willing to do so much more for you, really invest, really care, really like move the needle, pull, you know, and that was been my experience. If you look at me, Josh, I'm not a man with a plan. I look semi-homeless. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm so much more successful than I deserve to be. And it's not because I'm any smarter than anybody else. It's because I'm humble enough to know I need smarter people. And then I just give them the ball and I'm like, go, run. God bless. Do what you do and do what you do, because it's better than anything that I'll ever get away with. So if you're a small business owner right now, if you're a small agency owner right now, or a medium-sized agency owner, I don't care. Go look at international talent. Like, what's available and accessible to you is unreal. And there's some practical realities, dude. Like, there's some things. I'm going to get real racist real quick. We'll see if I get canceled. Pakistanis and Indians can't be on time for anything. My father's Pakistani. I'm allowed to say this. So if a Pakistani tells you, oh, it'll be done Friday at noon, it's Monday at 4. Just a rule. And you can either be like, oh, this doesn't work. I'm not working with these people. I'm done. Or you can build systems around accounting for some of that cultural idiosyncrasy. And you end up with some of the best engineering minds you've ever been exposed to. Filipinos don't take constructive criticism very well. They're a very family-centric culture, and so asking them to work graveyard shifts can be really negatively impactful for their lifestyle. Knowing that means you know what roles to hire them for, what roles not to hire them for. Eastern Europeans won't do things the wrong way, and they're very caustic in their communication. They're very blunt. They're very sterile. They're very upfront. So you can either get your feelings hurt or be like, you know what, this is a really bright person, and they're really good at operations. Some work with the Eastern Europeans. South Asians have more holidays than any humans alive. There's just things, you know what I mean? There's just things that once you figure out and you're like, you know what, I can put up with this. No bigger impact to my business ever than going international, paying people more, loving on them, treating them like they're real humans. Most people, entrepreneurs, are afraid, and this is subconscious, this is subterranean. And so I forgive the accusation here, because I'm about to just besmirch and what would you say, slander our collective environment. Employers are actually afraid of competence. They're afraid of not being the smartest person in the room. They're afraid of being found out. They're afraid. They have imposter syndrome. Like, what happens if I hire this person? They're so much smarter than me that they steal my business and all my clients and they run away, right? So they hire people that are quote unquote manageable. The problem with manageable people is they need to be managed. So now you're in this, you're king of the heap. Good for you. You know, beat your chest if you want to, but now you have a bunch of dummies that are running around like, all right, boss, what do we do now? As opposed to be a little humble and hire smarter people. Most people aren't entrepreneurial. Most people want a job. You know what's crazy to me? This is crazy to me. John Moran, greatest Google Ads mind in the world. I was always worried. I always wondered. He was one of my best friends, so I wasn't really worried, but I was wondered. I was like, why is this guy working for me? He could quit today, take 10% of our biggest clients, make 10 times as much money, work a quarter as much. Like, why is he working for me? This is crazy. This is unreal. We sold the agency. I fully expected him to spin off, do his own thing. You know what he did? He went and got another job. And you ask him why, and he's like, I don't want the risk. I don't want. He's an artist, dude. He's a brilliant. He's a literal genius. He doesn't have to deal with HR and billing and, you know what I mean, like all that garbage. Most people don't want to do the business part of it, the entrepreneurial part of it. So if your whole thing is like, oh, I'm afraid they're going to steal my whatever, stop that. That's not what you're hiring for. And if you have properly segmented processes and you have a business that's built to scale, they couldn't if they wanted to. So you can mitigate a lot of those risks. And dude, Pareto talent is the most important thing I've ever done for myself. So I feel like I've gone too far now. Forgive me. I'm going to pause there, Josh. How did I do?
No, that was awesome. And I think the takeaway for everybody is, you know, Kasim is a great example that you don't have to have a US based team with an office. You can go virtual. You can hire international. You've got to look for top grade talent, right? You got to look for the best of the best wherever they happen to be. And you got to be willing to pay more. But like the big idea was he was willing to pay more, but he wasn't getting incremental improvement in the output. He was getting exponential output increase across the organization. I think you were about to talk a little bit about Pareto hiring principles, and would love to have you kind of walk through that. How do you find that top grade, that A+ talent, and vet them without failing again and again with the wrong people?
Yeah. So the first thing to realize is you're hiring for two roles. You're hiring for whatever it is you're hiring for. So if you need a Google Ads manager, you're hiring for a Google Ads manager. If you need a graphic designer, client manager, whatever it is, and you're hiring for somebody that can work remotely. Those are two job descriptions, because remote work is a different type of work. Somebody that can come into the office and sit on an assembly line and do what they're told. It's a different human. So my hiring process is built to yield Pareto talent. And I'll give it to you wholesale. I'm writing a book on this right now, Josh. So if somebody's listening and they want the book, I'm going to be giving that book away too. You can just subscribe to my newsletter, and I'll give it to my newsletter as soon as it's available and accessible. And it'll include all of this along with templates and frameworks. I hope that's okay to say. I'm not trying to.
Absolutely. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'll be free. And here's what I do is I put a job description up. I pay more. I look at the high water mark for that role, and I pay 10% more than the high water mark. Now, what I just said is worth meditating on a minute. I didn't say pay 10% more than you're currently paying. I said, go find the most anybody else is willing to pay and pay 10% more than that at least. So you want to be, because here's why. If you want peak performers, winners want to win. Winners want to win, and money's how we keep score. So stop trying to pay less and get more. Pay more. Hey, I respect your time. And you know what I do is I tell people, and I say this in the job description, I say, I'm paying more than anybody in the industry because I have unreasonably high expectations. It does two things. It attracts peak performers to me, and it repels the people that just want to sit and be like, dude, I want to clock in, clock out, and go on with my life. God bless those people, by the way. I've got my cousins like that. He's one of my best friends in the whole wide world. I grew up with him. I'd never hire him in a million years. He doesn't work to live. You know what I mean? He lives to work. And what is it? No, he doesn't live to work. He works to live. So there's a place for those people in society, not in my business. I want the people who are like assassins, killers, bloodthirsty. I want to grow. I want to learn. I want to do good work. And they're in it. So I pay more than anybody else is willing to pay. And I tell them I'm paying more than anybody else is willing to pay because I have unreasonable expectations. In the job description, the top of the job description says, when you submit, make sure that your subject line reads, I actually read the instructions. And that's a little fly trap to actually read the instructions, because then my instructions, and your instructions can do whatever you want, but you need filtering mechanisms that show you that a remote employee can actually follow directions, pay attention to what you're asking them to do. So I ask them to answer questions like, if you're an animal, what kind of animal would you be and why? And what does this quote mean to you? And I have them send me their resume in a PDF format with this naming convention. I don't care that it's PDF, but I don't want a link and I don't want a Word document. I want to know that you can slow down, pay attention to what I'm asking you to do, and actually follow instructions. Filter out everybody that doesn't do that. Because you're paying so much, you're going to get a deluge of applications. Our last cohort of EA applications, we had 2,500 people apply. We only had 20 EAs graduate. So this is a massive funnel. It's a massive filtering mechanism. And because you're paying so much, people are going to be very interested. You want to make sure you have a lot of fly traps. And then I do some really creative things, Josh. You tell me what you think of this, because some of this is a little Machiavellian. But when people apply, I don't interview them. Your job is not to do an interview, because interviews are worthless and there's no way to know anything about anybody until you work with them. Instead, I respond and I say, hey, Josh, thanks so much for applying. I've been in business long enough to know that interviews won't tell me anything until we work together. I want to pay you to do a trial project. I'll give you $20 for 2 hours worth of work. In just about any international market, that's good. If it's not, up it until it is good. It doesn't have to be great. They're not going to get rich, but you want them to know you respect their time, and you want to be able to expect paid work back. So when they say, yeah, I'll do 2 hours worth of work for $20, I say, send me your PayPal address. When they send me the PayPal address, I send them the money. I don't send them the job. And I wait to see who follows up with me. Because if somebody's willing to ghost me for $20, that's a great integrity test that I don't want to give you a real job and then find out when you're willing to, do whatever it is you're willing to do, or if you don't pay attention, et cetera. So once they follow up with me, I send them a trial project. But I do this other really fun thing, which is I send them a trial project, but I don't tell them when it's due. I ask them, hey, Josh, based off of the scope of work, and the scope of work is always relevant to the role I'm hiring for, how long do you think this will take? And you're like, it's Monday today. I'll probably have this done by Friday. Great. Awesome. I want to know that you can communicate, assess the scope of work, manage expectations, give me a deadline. But I send a username and password for them to log in to get whatever it is they need. Here's the username and password for the drive in order to get the assets that you need. I send them the wrong password. And I wait to see who catches it. Because if you tell me you're going to have that done by Friday, and Thursday night I get a frantic email from you being like, the password doesn't work. I'm like, I know, you're a procrastinator. That doesn't mean I won't hire you, but it's now I'm aware as to how you need to be managed. When they've completed the trial project, and I'll have more fly traps than that, but those are just examples. Fly traps, stop them, make them work, make them, see how they think. When they come back, I have them shoot a video presenting their work. A lot of this is my little Trojan horse for testing English proficiency. Because if you ask somebody, shoot a video and introduce yourself, they're so nervous. And it's just, it's a much different environment and you get much different videos. But if I say, shoot a video, present your work, if you don't mind, like your camera on, because I want to know that you'd be able to present this to a client. And now I get to see how you work, how you think, how you communicate, what your trial project looks like. At that point, you've got A players. If you like their trial project, and dude, it's Solutions 8, because we were growing so fast, it wasn't uncommon for me to be hiring for one role, and I would just hire 3 people. I'd be like, all 3 of these are amazing. Bring them, because now I get to train in a cohort, and there's a community element to it. And putting them through that trial by fire meant that when they came on the other end, they were ready to rock, and they really earned the role, and they respected it, and they appreciated it. So there's more to it, more context, but that's the short version. How did I do?
So good. Yeah. I mean, it's just a masterclass in kind of how to hire, how to find great talent, and then how to skip some of the BS and give them the test project, figure out who's going to jump through the hoops and who you can screen out and who's like, let the cream rise to the very top. Love it. You said you're going to publish a book on this, and there was a place where people can learn more. Like, what would be the best place to direct people?
Yes, you can subscribe to my list, kasim.me, Kasim.me, M-E. And as soon as the book is ready, I'm giving it away. If you want to buy it on Amazon, I'd love for you to do that too, so you can give me a review. But you can have it. Everybody can have everything. I don't think I'm ever going to charge for content again. I think I'm just going to give away the farm, man. I'm really inspired by what Hormozi did. I think that makes so much sense. And it's just it's such a way to talk about building trust, building relationships. It's like, hey, here's everything. Here's all of it. And then if you want to come work with me later, or if you know somebody who wants to work with me, like, why wouldn't you send me that person,
So good. Yeah, guys, go there, get on his list. I think they can also access you versus Google.
You can have that for free. There's a link where they can download that. I'll give them my 7 critical principles of effective digital marketing. It's not a great book. It was the best I could do at the time, but people can have that too. I don't think I have that published online, but I will. I'll do that, or I'll give it to your list, Josh, if you want.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, man, that's beautiful. Thank you. So I do want to talk. I know we got to be respectful of your time here, but I want to talk a little bit about lessons learned in exit. Right. So you built the agencies, you've sold a couple of them. This last one was 8 figures. Like, what did we learn? How do you structure the books? How do you structure the organization? When you're the face, like you are in the business, how do you get past that and get that big exit?
Me being the face wasn't as big a problem as I thought it would be. Founder-led businesses sell now. They didn't 10 years ago. It really was, but that's old news. Founder-led businesses will sell. And, they're going to ask you to own some of the previous IP, and you have to put up with that. But me being the face wasn't a problem at all. And I've heard that from other friends that have made exits that also were, founder first, let's say. So I wouldn't worry about that, period, full stop. And somebody can argue with me if they want to, but I've seen it, and I've seen it quite literally, Josh, at this point, dozens of times, because I know some folks that help agencies exit. You and I know some of the same people. So that was number one. One of the things that saved my life was all of my contracts were transferable. If your contracts are not transferable, and this is a state issue too, depending on the state that governs the agreements, and I'm speaking U.S. law. If you're international, check whatever domestic laws apply to you. But the company that came in and bought us, if the contracts weren't transferable, I had to go to 200 clients and say, "Will you please? Will you please? Will you please?" And that would have been atrophy, questions, problems, issues. Which then downregulates your valuation. So the fact that my contracts were transferable meant I could sell the business and I could sell the agreements with it, and it was clean. So first and foremost, go make sure your contracts are transferable no matter what. In most states, they're actually transferable unless they say otherwise, but I would still have a little clause in there that says, hey, and if somebody calls you on it, they're not a good client. It's like, hey, I want to grow, and someday I actually might want to sell. And if I sell, I'm going to do it the right way, and I'm going to stick around and make sure you're well cared for. But transferable contracts, accounting is so important. GAAP compliant accounting. I didn't know what that meant. My M&A advisor had to help me with that. I want to launch a financial services agency for agencies. So if you ever want to partner with me on that, Josh, I really need help because I can't do the client acquisition piece of it. But it was so important to me. I have a personal finance team now. I want to help agencies figure out how to get ultra clear on their books, but not just bookkeeping, because bookkeeping is not enough. Like, how do you do projections? How do you do budgeting? How do you do forecasts? Like, can we afford to hire this person? If we lose this client, what happens, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That type of thing is really important. And you have to be able to tell a story. The most important part of the exit was we had a really good story. I had an amazing trend line. And you have to assume that that trend line continues. And we had really good margins. I had demonstrable margins for 2 years. I had 40% margins.
Nice.
So I was able to sell on TTM, which is trailing 12 months. Words I didn't know. We were approaching $2 million EBITDA. Actually, I think we exceeded $2 million EBITDA. And EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, which is also a word I didn't know, which is just net profit, right? Like we were making $2 million, but we put $2 million in our pocket. Make sure you have a really good M&A advisor. Do not go through a business broker. Period. I hope I'm not saying anything that offends you or your network.
Not at all.
Okay.
No,
Business brokers are used car dealers, dude. They're just here to make a fee. You don't want a business broker. You want an M&A person. And chances are you may be too small for an M&A person. You have to get to $1 million EBITDA before you can sell. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just not big enough to show up on anybody's radar. You need a good M&A attorney. The attorneys are deal breakers, not deal makers. So one of the things that everybody needs to do is, with whoever the acquiring entity is, try to come to terms before the attorneys talk. And that's not true in the beginning. It's true at every iteration of conversation. You and I, you're buying my agency. Hey, Josh, let's do me a favor, dude. I want to save $700 an hour. I'm sure you want to save $700 an hour. Can we just figure out what we think the terms should be before we go bring in the douchebags? Because here's the thing about the attorneys. My attorney doesn't work for me and your attorney doesn't work for you. Our attorneys work for each other and they're on the same team. The more time this takes, the more both of them make. Right. So they're both incentivized to sit there and saber rattle. And I mean, I saw attorneys get obsessive over the definitions of words that I knew it was just absolutely superfluous. And I could see the way that they were both running the clock. So come to terms, generally speaking, plain language. Here's what I think. Here's what you think. And then bring in the attorneys. And then they can, and they're still going to run the clock. I'm not a fan of attorneys at all. There's very few industries that I hate with everything inside of me. And that's one of them. And I have a couple of friends that are attorneys. But be careful because they're deal breakers. And my attorney wasn't bad. I actually thought he was a good attorney. He almost killed the deal 2 separate times on shit that I didn't care about. He got all twisted and, and I'm like, dude, let that go. Stop. I want the money. The other thing I'll say is, earnouts or burnouts. Earnouts or burnouts. So if they insist on an earnout, it is what it is. A lot of people will. But terms are more important than price. I'll pay you $1 billion for your agency right now today. As a matter of fact, anybody listening, I'll pay everybody $1 billion for their agency. All of you, I swear to God, I'll put it in writing. I'll give you $1 a day for 1 billion days. If your agency is net positive, I'll give you $1 a day for 1 billion days. And now you got $1 billion exit. Good for you. Congratulations. Pat yourself on the back, right? Terms are more important than price. Yeah. And be sure that you're happy with your cash at close. I was very happy with my cash at close. Have your number. Know what the number is in your head, where you never have to work again, or you feel like this is actually worth you doing. And make sure it's adjusted for inflation. Once you hit that number, get out. If you're not yet financially free, what's really interesting, dude, is I did a low 8-figure exit. I talked to a gentleman named Ruben Hendel, who's brilliant, by the way, really worth looking into. He was the managing partner at Madison Alley. I think he's since left, but he does M&A for agencies. And Ruben's like, dude, if you can get to 5 million EBIT, I can get you a 13x exit. That's $65 million, dude. $65 million. Wow. I was looking at low 8 figures. I'll let y'all do the math because I'm not allowed to say. I'm under NDA. And I probably would have been at $5 million EBIT in 2 or 3 years, and I would have had a $65 million exit. I cashed the check, and I'm glad I did because all of a sudden, months after we sold, ChatGPT drops, AI drops, agency world changes. I sold to 200 clients. We dropped to 130. Wow. Like I would have been left with an atrophying agency, right? So if you have yet to be financially free as an agency, you'll always have a second at bat. Go get your forever money. Get your nucleus. Dude, I drive a 40-year-old. I'm a decamillionaire. I drive a 40-year-old Honda, right? Like the whole beach house Ferrari thing, God bless. I don't judge those people. It is what it is. But go get your fortress of solitude, as John Goodman put it. And then now I want $100 million. But I can take $100 million swing and I can take a bunch of them and I can fail and I can fail. I can fail because I have my forever money. So if you don't have your forever money yet, don't hold out. Just if the opportunity arises, man, get it, grab it, take it. And then you'll have a second at bat and a third at bat. And as soon as you make money, it's crazy. I was raised by a blind single mother on Social Security disability. We are welfare babies. And it was clawing and scratching for everything. I made my money so stupid, $1 at a time. As soon as I made my exit and people know I'm a millionaire, the opportunities that flood my inbox, it's insane. It's insane. Everything's for free when you can afford it. I can go anywhere I want to go. I can go to, I mean, I don't have to pay for masterminds anymore. Everybody wants me to come to their mastermind. Like I used to, I was 30, 40 grand to join War Room. And like now it's like, oh, Kasim, can you please come?
Right.
It's kind of cool, but it's like, I'm the same dude. I'm not any smarter. So get to that point, and then the horizons broaden. And it's pretty nuts, man. Like it's been pretty fun on the other end of it. So I hope that was a good answer, Josh. I hope
it was beautiful. Kasim, thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for sharing an amazing case study and caring about people, putting out amazing content, leading with like developing your team and the success that you can have as you grow and scale your agency. Kasim, if they want to learn more, I know you've got a recruiting service that helps with the Pareto talent stuff. I want to give you like a couple seconds because I know you've got to run. Like, how can our listeners, viewers connect with you further, learn more about your services? Get more Kasim.
Yeah, go to Kasim.me if you want to subscribe to my newsletter. I haven't really been servicing it the way that I should. You can follow me on socials. All my social linkers are there. And then stay tuned. I'm trying to figure out what's next, dude. So I'm talking at Go High Level if anybody's coming to the High Level Summit.
We'll see you there. I'm sure a lot of us will see you there.
If you want to be my friend, come join my mastermind, drivenmastermind.com. It's 35 grand to hang out with some of the baddest ass entrepreneurs in the world for 4 times a year. And then we do a weekly call every Wednesday. So little sales plug there.
Phenomenal. Awesome. Thanks so much for your time. Look forward to seeing you. I'll see you at the High Level. Look forward to seeing you there, and we'll let you run.
Yeah, appreciate it.